Hi kids, do you like violence? um, I'm still working on a new tagline. It's your boy, it's your man's, homeless failed artist here. Um, Doing a little video today. So, my performance on some of my videos has been up and down. The one I did about the capitalist prison thing and homelessness got a lot of response, a lot of love and hate comments. But I'm just doing this general video today because I just had some things I wanted to express. Real quick update: the body lice has seemed to been kind of controlled at the moment. Starting to get back around to getting it. One good method of doing it is suffocation of the insects. But primarily, I think what I need to do, and I've been waiting because this is such a pain in the ass to hand wash, is waiting to wash my hoodie and changing these other pants. And, it's just kind of, you're just going to have to play it by ear, really. But today's topic, just something I wanted to discuss. First of all, thank you for watching this video. Thank you for sharing this video. Thank you for commenting on this video. Thumbs up and thumbs down and whatever you got to say, man, just say it down in the bottom. I'm open to all hate and love comments. Doesn't really, do anything bad. Doesn't really. I've been so, you know, I've been on the internet for so many years now, and a lot of you may not know, I have a profile on Facebook if you'd like to check it out. Tengu Press, which is the name of my comic book, publishing company, my art company. Basically, whatever productions I do will go through the Tengu Press, which is on Facebook. You can check me out. I'll include a link in the description. But essentially, all that stuff helps me out. Even if you can't donate, which I'll include donation links, I always do in the descriptions of my videos. If there's anything you could send my way to help out right now to buy art supplies or supplies in general, from food to sleeping bags to clothes to any of that shit, that would be greatly appreciated. If you can't, then I understand that. Which, brings me to, I guess, the point of today's video. And just generally what's been on my mind the last little bit. I can't donate plasma for the next 7 days, which has put another hindrance on things. It's kind of been a pain in the ass. My protein level dropped the other day. I haven't been eating regularly a consistent diet because I'm just and I know this is just me, man, but I'm just going to say it. I'm kind of tired of being part of the homeless industrial complex. And I'm kind of tired of going to churches and bread lines and shit like that and giving them another person to put, in their numbers of whatever to continue to see people suffer and die in the streets. And that's just Band-Aids on bullet holes, man. And I get all the excuses and I get all the reasons and blah, 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 blah. And I mean, once again, I've heard this shit since the beginning of the pandemic when my own personal journey began. And, it's horse shit. And I think it's horse shit because I've seen how petty people can be when it comes to asking, especially, and it's not just from my perspective as an American artist, but many American artists out there who are independents and in a dire need of support. So first of all, let me go over something with you. So my YouTube channel will probably, I will keep it unmonetized for however long it goes. I'll never run commercials on my profile, anything like that. I don't even know if I have the option to do that because years ago when I started doing jokey videos, I used, they copyright strike me how many ever times, whatever. And, that was just that. But either way, even if it becomes popular, I would rather not sponsor or have any kind of sponsorships or commercials or anything like that on my fucking YouTube because I want to keep it free. And I'd rather, in all honesty, I would rather be heard than paid, but it fucking helps to be paid as an American artist or creator or whatever. You have to understand on my journey, that's been a lot of my problems is I got these talents and I feel like these talents can sell. I feel like these talents are good and viable. but yet I have to go work shitty 40-hour-a-week jobs that don't even pay my goddamn bills, and I can never get my art up on the way. Even with YouTube videos, I'll share it. I'll ask people, please, you literally beg people. It's like, please share, please comment, please do this. And they just refuse to fucking do it because we live in a goddamn American society where people cannot stand other people getting to the top nowadays. And it surprises me too, because it's like, we live in this fucking hypocritical, bullshit, stupid kind of country where people constantly say, well, I'm tired of the typical, atypical, standard norm shit, and I want new creations, but yet they won't support new creations. And it doesn't have to be a specific thing. I mean, it doesn't, I do not believe that art is a rigid formula. Art has never been a rigid formula. Art is the expression of the soul, the heart. Artists' talents are to put into words and visuals and everything else that nobody can capture. And it's just something that, I firmly believe that you're not, it isn't just an exclusive club. It's something that anybody can do. And I've always said that. And I know some artists don't want to hear that. And some artists want to go out there and fucking say that, but Bob Ross is a prime example of that. Bob Ross has taught, thousands and thousands and thousands, God knows countless numbers of people how to begin to do art. Now, I know some of you may be like, well, Bob Ross's stuff isn't art. That's some kind of cookie cutter, blah, 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 or whatever. But no, he's showed that anybody can do it and anybody can express themselves. And growing up, Bob Ross was one of the biggest early influences on my arts in my life, is, because we had PBS and we were poor. We didn't have cable TV. And thank God for PBS, which is under threat right now from this fucking, attempted Fuhrer, attempted, Nazi Germany, Republican right horse shit. But they went after PBS. And, I'm just going to put a tack on that, is that PBS is probably one of the first, before the internet, was one of the first forms of true individual, uncontrolled, unregulated expression in America. Literally, PBS could put any, damn near anything on within reason, and they did. And they did it in respectful ways, and they did it in respectful, content. And it was family-friendly content. Like everything on PBS, which is why I still love them, is they put it in family-friendly terms, from Sesame Street, talking about autism, to difficult subjects that, all Americans have this excuse of, like, for example, sex education. They have this excuse of, well, I can't talk to my kids about sex because that's awkward, or that's blah, 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 blah. But PBS showed that you could talk about anything, anytime, anywhere with children, and they'll be okay. As a matter of fact, I think it makes children far better to be able to fucking discuss these things openly and honestly, and have a dialogue, and you could do it in a respectful, responsible and coherent manner, and kids will get it. But yet we feed them to other TV channels. We feed them to other garbage. We feed them to TikTok. We feed them to everything else, It's not uncommon nowadays for a child to be given a fucking tablet and be like, okay, go ahead. It's a new latchkey generation. It really is. And it's a new TV generation, like what happened to me as a kid. Parents too busy to, working or doing what the fuck ever, and they just set you in front of a tablet or a TV, and it's like, good luck, little buddy. And they really don't vet or watch or whatever's going on. And, at one point in time, with TVs, that was one thing, because TVs had standards and control and stuff like that. And we were being reached by, big industry and stuff like that on everything but PBS. Another thing I'll bring up about PBS. PBS was one of the first non-commercial channels and non-commercially funded programs and channels. Basically, they did not bow to any corporations or anything like that, and whatever content they did was not regulated by anybody but them. And no, like, Coca-Cola couldn't step in and be like, hey, you know what, we don't like this, blah, 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 and then hold back their advertiser pay to basically, which is happening to our media all over the place, like news programs, shit like that. They're like, well, we're not going to advertise on your program because you didn't do what we wanted, and that's why 99.9% of American television is fucking garbage. But yet PBS, once again, they didn't have any commercial regulation. They didn't have any damn advertisers on their shit. It was completely funded by the people of America and the general public. And obviously they were doing something fucking right because they've been in business for God knows how many years now, over 40. But yet, that's the right wing, that's the danger, because they promote people to have a goddamn brain and think and critically think. And that's not what the fanatic right of this country wants. They don't want that shit. They want goddamn brainwashed, stupid ass fucking goats that do whatever. They go out and say, oh, the immigrant is causing all the problems, and the dumbass, fat, fucking overfed Americans are like, yeah, that's the problem. And they don't want critical thinkers. And it serves, not only the government's purpose, which is basically fucking owned by corporations anyways now, but it serves all the corporate interests, because the stupider you are, the less you critically think, the less you're going to question when you buy that Coke or that Twinkie or that what the fuck ever. And we're seeing the ramifications of that now. And I know there's a lot of dialogue right now too amongst people that, oh, this is the end of the world. And I've been watching a lot of podcasts that I highly recommend you watch. It's called Sean Ryan. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and prerequisite this by saying I don't necessarily agree with his religious views sometimes or whatever. I really didn't dive deep into that. But a lot of his other views on politicians and other things is very kind of spot on, and he gives veterans, especially veterans who were wounded in war, the chance to speak, and sometimes that's up to 6 hours straight. And he doesn't really cut up the podcast. You can have the whole experience and stuff like that. And for example, he had the Reaper on there, which I highly recommend watching that podcast. I'll link that down below too. But it is just an amazing, amazing series. And I've watched several of those podcasts already with veterans, and they go from basically their childhood through service, through conflict, through battles, to basically the aftermath of their service. And there's a lot of Iraqi veterans who are basically echoing the sentiment in Afghanistan veterans, who are basically echoing the sentiment that the war was bullshit. And I mean, he's put out some great stuff, whether, and I really haven't delved deep into his beliefs. I know he had Trump on there. I don't like Trump. I think he's a fucking joke, an orange ape that's a money man, the head money man. But he's a fair guy. He's not a bad, man, and he's actually a veteran himself. SEAL team, I think SEAL team. I forgot which exact thing it was, but he's talked about his experience. Like I said, it's such an enlightening program, especially the one with the Reaper. And the veterans he's had on there, he's never, as far as I know of, he's had some who have been outed as, fucking stolen valor lately. And that's a whole other thing to get into if you start watching that or going into these things, is, the stolen valor shit. Like, there's a lot of stories about some of these American heroes where it was like, for example, I forget what it was with Mark Wahlberg, but it was like, basically like, come to find out the guy ran from the conflict. And I really didn't look that up, but that was his stolen valor, I guess. And Sean Ryan is, if nothing else, he's just honest. He's, straightforward. He says what he says, and does what he does. And, he puts it in such a way to where even if I disagree, I don't disrespect him, because he's coherent. He's, and it ain't got nothing to do with his veteran status, which is a very respectable thing, but it's got the way he composes himself. He doesn't come off as an asshole or an idiot or a fool. And he really, has deep conversations, and conversations unlike anything I've ever seen, honestly. That's just from the veteran stuff that I've watched. And a lot of them are wounded veterans, horribly wounded in battle. One of them was actually with a young man, I forgot his exact name, but he was, during the withdrawal of Afghanistan, which really was not put out through the media, was not published, and it was under the Biden administration, but the pullout of Afghanistan and just all the parameters that happened in Afghanistan, like Obama's, engagement practices and stuff like that, that limited military services and all this and all that. To other things, like I said, the Biden withdrawal was a goddamn nightmare. And this young man was caught in a terrorist attack that, for some reason, was not allowed. They weren't allowed to engage the bomber as he approached the gates up there. And I can't. I'll link that podcast as well, because that is just a fucking horror story and a nightmare. And as a result, he caught over 100-something ball bearings in his body when the bomb exploded, which was a 30-40 pound IED. 100 some odd people killed instantly at the gates of this, Bagram, I think it was Bagram Air Base or Bagram Airport, wherever it was. It was before the Taliban took Afghanistan back over. And essentially people were in this mass exodus because they knew what that meant. And they knew the brutality that was going to follow. And it's just a horror story. And I highly recommend watching it, and I highly recommend getting on it. But despite all that, going into the point of today's video is, me basically asking for any assistance or anything you could do for me right now. Financial donations, if you would like, or basically fucking going through my content, sharing it, becoming a fan, going to follow, going to Instagram, going to all my social, networks, really getting on board with my journey. And that's all I can really ask of you, I guess, and to please help out. And going back to the YouTube channel being monetized, whatever happens in the future as I grow and I expand, trust me, once I get past this point and period, it's going to be far more deeper and bigger content over the years. And regardless of how big the channel gets, I still want to, and that's why I'm putting this on video now too, is because I want to have people reference this if I ever do monetize and get sponsorships and all this shit. And just like with PBS and all that stuff, that shit comes with a price. And I know one way or another that shit basically signs you up for contracts to say and do certain things, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, not begrudging anybody who does follow that path, but for me, that's just not, I'd rather not have anyone be able to influence my channel or whatever. And I'd love to be sitting on one day, one of the biggest YouTube channels that there is, and not have a single goddamn sponsorship or commercial ad. And just be, completely through Patreon support or the independent funding things that you could do through YouTube. Like, they have a little donation button now, or support the channel, or subscriber content or something. But I'll never go through the sponsorship road or any of those things. And like I said, for some people that works just fine, because they have, necessarily content that will, fit into the line like that. And they, me, myself, my content, my content I know is going to be outspoken, and like it has been already, outspoken and not afraid to say my opinion about things and stuff like that, right or wrong. Just speak my mind. And it's a therapy for me personally. And I'll do more humor stuff in the future, dark comedy, whatever, just throw whatever out there, because at the end of the day, once again, I'm an artist. I'm an outspoken artist. And I'm a very, when I see things and I see things that disgust me and stuff like that, I can't help but manifest them and draw them and do them and stuff like that. I've always been hyper aware of the commercialism and the effect that it, has on the American art industry. Music is one of them. You could obviously see, and over the years, I grew up in an era when there wasn't the independent channels. Like, if you didn't go through the music industry, you didn't get published. And if you didn't do what the music industry said, you didn't get published. And basically you had to climb tooth and nail back in the day before TikTok and all these other things. You had to sell shit out of the back of your car or go underground or whatever. And, there's been so many artists out there and musicians, that when they got the time to sign the contract, the original band members that the record companies and blah, blah, blah didn't like, they would kick them out. For example, stuff like that. And that shit still happens in Hollywood and California and in places like that today, which is why so many people have gone outside of that gate-kept industry and shit. And, you know, here we are now too in during the P. Diddy trial, we're finding out all these secrets. You know, we got shit like fucking Epstein out there. This big fucking, you know, and I don't want to necessarily say Illuminati-esque organization, because it's not. It's the wealthy, and it's the same shit the wealthy have been doing for over 30 years in this country. Once again, they go to the country clubs and stuff like that. They carve up your country, they carve up your world, and you're not. It's an exclusive club, and you're not invited. And that's and that's the best way anybody could ever put it. It's an exclusive club, and you're not invited. And you really have to come to terms right now and really start waking the fuck up to the fact that none of this is for the American people anymore. None of this is for mankind. This is money over mankind. And like good sheep and like good, ignorant, stupid, non-critical thinking people out there, which is a large portion of American culture right now, they still tell you what the fuck to watch and what the fuck to support and what the fuck to do, and you lap it up. And I see Caleb Heron is a comedian and an artist and a podcaster and stuff like that I've really turned on to recently too. And he had a quote on one of his channels one day. He's a gay man, and he's just a brilliant performer. But he was sitting there, and he was talking about one day, everybody's liberal until the tents show up outside, out on the street corner, right? So it's like, these people are all liberal and liberal this and liberal that until the fucking tents show up. The tent cities show up, and then they're like, oh, well, hell no. No, we can't have that. But I thought you were liberal. I thought you were progressive. I thought you were this philanthropic, which is, trust me, liberals and Democrats have been shoving people into goddamn shanty towns in America for years now. Trust me. And if, it was just as simple as the liberal ideology was going to be the one that's going to win over and get all this and all that and all this good stuff happening, then this shit would have already been solved. Yeah, point blank, period. So it's full of shit. And I mean, a part of me is just at the point now too, like what the fuck happened to Americans? 30, 40, 50 years ago in this country, man, like during World War II and stuff like that, man, like people goddamn mobilized for problems. People mobilized for issues. And it just no longer happens. It really doesn't. Now, I mean, if there's a chance to be on Instagram holding a sign in a protest, of course you're all about the cause then. But then when the likes and the follows go down, it's something I like to refer to as pseudo philanthropy, because it is. It's it goes back to shit like Black Lives Matter. Everybody was holding their damn Starbucks Frappuccino and hashtagging Black Lives Matter. Meanwhile, they have no black people from the ghetto they've ever met, no black people who weren't in the country club that they've ever met. And as soon as that died out, it was like, oh, well, I guess we solved a problem. And then George Floyd happened, and then some of the most prolific and public, brutal police killings of black men in America happened in quick succession. And where and I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, where was the, hashtag Black Lives Matter then? And I mean, these people were killed very publicly, especially with George Floyd. I mean, there's God knows how many people standing around this man getting murdered. Nobody could pick up a fucking brick and hit a cop anymore. And but people had the video. People had the video. You goddamn right. People had the fucking cell phone out videotaping a man get murdered. But nobody could pick up a brick. Nobody could pick up a fucking something around them and just stop this man from getting murdered. But that's the kind of horseshit hypocrisy we deal with in this nation. And speaking on that, I'm never going to give up my art. I'm never going to give up, pursuing my art and stuff like that. I mean, like I said, I've been in this game so long as And that's why I refer to myself as a failed American artist, because, you know, and I know I can go out there and do certain specific commercial things, and, you know, I just don't want to do that. I don't want to draw kittens on porcelain plates playing with a mouse and, you know, blah, 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 blah. I don't want to do Bob Ross style paintings and stuff like that, you know. And part of my struggle over the years has been basically not working, you know, working constantly to pay my bills, and then not having time or energy or anything left to put into my passions. And it's a very, very destroying thing. And you know, I admit it destroyed me years ago, and which was part of my journey. And, you know, and it seems like the more I ask, the more people just ignore it and don't pay attention. You know, and like I said, I'm afraid that they're thinking if I get successful, then, you know, I'm not going to give back to my communities and stuff like this. But yet they're going Will Smith shit or Jack Black's or anybody who's already known and be like, oh, yes, yes, yes. You know, you're like basically sucking them off. And these are goddamn billionaires. And that's been one of the biggest problems on YouTube, is these fucking millionaires stepping into the circle and just absorbing an audience. Meanwhile, a lot of independent creators on YouTube, stuff like that, struggle for years to build any kind of audience or whatever. And it's just, you know, you wonder why American art is dead. You wonder why American art has become cookie cutter. You wonder why American art is not not as expressive as European nations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's because we made it this way. And that's 99.9% of American problems. We fucking made it this way. So don't bitch, don't complain, don't cry, don't whine, don't hold your Bible and say, oh, Jesus, why, when you've made it this way. And not only have you made it this way, you've ensured that it won't change. You know, you've made sure it's not going to change. And just become enlightened. You know, become you know, I don't want to say woke or whatever, but wake the fuck up. Realize that this is not the end. And I know a lot of Christian people right now and all this would like to fucking have you believe this is the end of the world. It's not. It's not the end of the world. This is just what they want to have happen. Of course, they want the goddamn rapture to happen because they think they're going to the, you know, heaven instantly, which they're not. They're going to be stuck on earth. They're going to burn with the rest of us. And they're going to have to face it. You know, I mean, regardless, if that is the case, which you know, and I personally believe that's what's going to happen because, you know, not every single church, but a lot of them are just full of fucking shit. They don't mean half of the shit they say. Sunday Christians, Monday morning quarterbacks. They go to church on Sunday, washing the blood of the Lamb, and then they're back to sin the whole rest of the week. Or go in there and talk shit about each other. Look at Becky's dress. Look at Barbara's dress. Look at this. I can't believe this. And then meanwhile, they're holding up the Bible and being like, you know. And but anyways, if you like my content, please like, comment, subscribe. Please share this video across social media. Please help me out. If you want to donate something, Cash App, Venmo links are in the description. Anything would help, from $1 to whatever. You know, it ain't got to be $1 billion, you know, and I know some people will say, well, you know, I'm living on this, blah, 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 and I get that. I understand that. But, you know, once again, you can share, like, comment, you can share the video, you could get eyes on my content, you can get eyes from people who can help, you know. Anyways, this is the failed American artist, once again, signing off. Thank you for watching, and you guys have a great day, and I will talk to you later.